Yeah, the last time we did this, it was in March.
Yes, we were doing that April Fool's episode.
Yeah, which I didn't air because
no one heard.
Well, you phoned it in. Well, we didn't really talk to each other.
No, I guess not.
Yeah. Probably should have maybe that's why this time I was like, hey, are we doing this movie?
Watching the right.
Let's make sure. Yeah, otherwise you'd be like, what do you mean there was a giant man-eating planet robot? Wait, have you not seen Transformers from the 80s?
Yeah.
Welcome. You are entering into a strange dimension. A dimension where narratives from across space and time come together. Narratives that could have, might have, or should have been all exist here in one space. This is CineCasters Ultimate Timeline.
Welcome back to CineCasters Ultimate Timeline. This is the show where we talk about terrible, terrible movies and then rewrite them and pitch them to each other to make them not terrible. And today I'm joined by the wonderfully bearded, excellent man on the other side of the country, Nathaniel Draper.
Oh, hello.
Or
that's me,
Nate Draper.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. People, it's a if you've met me after a certain year, you call me Nate.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
And people before that tend to call me Nathaniel, but it doesn't matter. Okay. If you meet me in the street, I won't. Doesn't. Not that you're going to just run into me in the street, but...
Yeah, you don't know what he looks like. This is a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, that guy.
All you know is that
you look wonderfully bearded.
Yeah, you're wonderfully bearded and excellent. That's all there is to that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what have you been up to for the past 6 months since we did that horrible, stupid April Fool's thing that didn't wind up happening?
Yeah, I spent, of the last 6 months, I spent maybe a little more than 3 of them in Cambodia, shooting a documentary.
Yeah, and that's
the details of which I can't get into yet, but it does take place in Cambodia.
Well, I should hope so.
I shot a documentary in Cambodia that's actually supposed to take place in South Africa, but we could only afford the locations in Cambodia.
Yeah. Which is why we haven't done a lot of CineCasters, because you've been out. And actually, during that time, I finished my thesis for my master's. So we've both been busy.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had a lot going on.
Yeah, it's been a little crazy around these parts and your parts. And I moved back into Canada.
Oh, yes. Welcome home.
Oh, thank you. And, so that's pretty much what's going on. So I guess we should dive right into this travesty.
Yeah, let's get it over with.
Oh my goodness. So today we are doing Transformers. And I have to say, when you said, "Oh, Andrew, we should watch Transformers," I was like, I don't know why I let Nathaniel talk me into these kinds of things, because I was like, God, this movie is long and terrible. Like, you know, when you watch the Titanic, you're like, this movie's long, but it's not terrible. I mean, it's not the greatest, but it's an okay movie. But you're like, this movie's long, so you got to sit down, you got to hunker down and be like, well, you know, this is my life for the next hour and or 3 hours and whatever minutes. But like, or like when you watch Sharknado, you're like, oh, this movie's like a solid hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes, and it's terrible, but it's good. This movie is like 2 hours and 15 odd minutes, not including credits, and it's just so bad.
I was gonna say it felt like 3.
Yeah, man. Oh God, it was so bad.
It felt like a lot more.
Yeah. So, like, let's get right in. What are your thoughts on the movie?
Oh, pretty much you've summed it up wonderfully. But I'm good. You know what? I'll start with some things that I actually thought were working for it.
Okay.
Why not?
Okay.
I actually do think when it's not taking itself too seriously, there's some funny moments. The one thing, okay, so we were talking a little bit about this before, but when I saw it when it came out when I was 14, I actually loved this movie. I thought it was so cool, and I actually haven't revisited it because I wanted to live in this delusion that I actually really enjoyed Michael Bay's Transformers, and that has now been shattered.
Yeah.
And pretty much the only other thing that I liked in this movie, I actually thought the visual effects and the sound effects were amazing.
Yeah, they really are.
And like, there is one shot that I actually really, really love, and it's a slow motion shot of Optimus Prime and this other Decepticon on the highway, and they're like racing at each other.
Oh, it's
and it looks,
Bone Crusher.
Yes, and it looks realistic. And things like, I mean, that was cool. So purely on the cool factor for maybe those shots like that, it wins some points. That is my list of things I liked about the movie.
That was 2 things?
Yes. that was 2 things.
Yeah. I have, I think, 1 thing. I literally wrote down in my notes, what is this, a Michael Bay movie? Because of all the explosions. But I think
that's a very good guess.
I think the most thing that I have that I love the most is the radio gag. The radio gag is the only thing that I really thought was funny. Like Bumblebee's radio voice.
Oh yeah,
I thought that was really, like, there's some funny stuff in there. I thought it was like a cool thing where they were like, in order to have conversations, he was like using the radio. I thought that was kind of a funny gag. And that's about, and like, I mean, the visuals are good. And the fact that they got Optimus Prime's original voice, that was really excellent. And I think that's about it. That's really all that I have that is strong. I mean, this movie is kind of strong if you just look at the action, like the explosions. It's impressive. The CGI is impressive. The Transformers...
There are some impressive explosions.
But when the Transformers transform, like, it looks good. It looks really good.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like that. That's the cool factor.
Yeah. So you want to get into things that you really stood out to you that are like, oh, there is one line in there, but this is sort of a backhanded compliment, because there's one line where, like, Sam Witwicky's best friend, the long-haired whatever his name was, he says, like, why are you so interested in Michaela? She's an evil jock concubine. And I was like, that might be the smartest line in this movie, and it comes from a tertiary character.
Yeah.
I was like, evil jock concubine is something we would say.
Yeah.
That's right up there with dinosaur Santa Claus and computer grandma.
Or a suburban witch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot about the suburban witch. Oh, that's a good one.
We're terrible.
Yeah, we are a little bit terrible.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, those are really all the good things that I had to say about that. I don't know if you have any points that you really were just like, wow, like, I need to talk about how bad that was.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm looking. The list is endless.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the 2 leads were just
What, Shia LaBeouf and Megan Fox?
And Megan Fox. Yeah. I mean, there's... I could list the specifics, like she warms up to him way too fast in a way that...
Also,
you know what?
What is their relationship?
I actually made a note. Well, actually, this is something that occurred to me. I was actually having a conversation with a film editor on a show I worked on back like a year ago, and we were talking about how watching movies growing up, we had no good male role models.
It's true.
You basically, like, it was always to get the girl, you either had to be like... You had to be highly manipulative. And this movie, actually, there's that scene where he's like, oh, maybe you could sit on my lap and I could put the seatbelt. And I'm like, no, dude.
Yeah, like, what
this is the stuff that they were like showing us as kids, like, oh, this is how you
flirt with girls. This is socially acceptable.
Yeah. It's like, no. Yeah, no, that's not cool.
Yeah. I will say that Megan Fox is nice to look at the risk of sounding like anti-feminist, but like, you can have attractive looking women. There's nothing wrong with that. But like, how you treat them in the plot. And this movie's like, oh, we're feminist. She's good with cars. But then she never does anything with it.
No, exactly.
She's like, oh, I used to fix up these cars. But she doesn't fix Bumblebee. She just winds up walking home. And then that never becomes a thing later on.
No, exactly.
Like, you know, Chekhov's gun.
Yeah.
If you're gonna set something up, then you have to pull the trigger.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing is, yeah, she doesn't make any decisions, really.
Well, she gets in the car. That's like the one thing. In like 10 years time.
But then even after that, she doesn't do anything.
Everything happens to... I actually have in my pitch, everything happens to Sam and Michaela. Nothing happens because of them.
Yes, and that's actually a similar thing I picked up on, too.
Yeah, that's actually something that I put into my plot a little bit. My pitch.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other like burning things that you just need to be like, what the hell was this?
There was a lot that was coincidental.
Yeah. Stuff
Like,
just kind of happens.
your great grandfather had these glasses, and it was such a weird connection.
The whole
And I
movie
was
is
thinking,
weird,
like,
especially the second half of the movie is just like they start skipping over plot points. Like all of a sudden, the army guys knew who the Transformers are, and I'm like, when the fuck did you guys meet Optimus?
Yeah, exactly. Or the other thing too, it's like, so you go to a used car lot and you're going to buy a car, and the one car that's creating this problem, you're okay with bringing home. Like that car just destroyed the windows on all the other cars, and yeah, I'll take that one home.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't know. This movie is... There's so many things. My list is so long, and even this, I'm like... Also, like, Sam's obsession with Michaela is just like, why?
Yeah, exactly.
The way he treats his friend is like, you gotta get her to the car, you gotta get her to the car. And I'm like, we're supposed to sympathize with this kid, but he's telling his friend... Like, he's leaving his friend so that he can try and woo some girl who clearly isn't even interested in him.
Yeah. Yeah, he's actually a jerk.
He's not a good character.
Yeah.
I honestly,
actually did occur to me.
I wonder if we pulled one of your old methods for repitching, which is, what if we had just changed the main character to Michaela?
Oh, that's interesting. I did something. Not quite. I did something. Not quite. But yeah, actually, that would be interesting. Yeah.
I wonder, like,
interesting to see that movie.
If it was just through her. Yeah, I mean, it still would be a bad movie, but I just wonder if you like got rid of Sam and you just basically were like, okay, Michaela's the main character now. She's the one with the car. She still can have the same. She can be the same character. Let's just not have her entire personality
here's
hinge
the other
off
thing.
of
There's some
a character.
There was one character. It was John Voight, who plays
good.
the Secretary of Defense.
Yeah,
and he said something.
He does
like,
a good job.
Well, the thing is, like, he's in the movie, and I'm like, wait, how did Michael Bay get him to agree to this, and how did he get John Turturro to agree to be in this movie too? Like, these are some heavy hitters.
Money.
What are they doing? What are they doing in this movie?
Money.
I'm sure they got paid pretty handsomely. That's for sure.
Yeah, I feel like Michael Bay puts his name to a movie, everyone's going to be like, oh, it's going to be a summer blockbuster. It's not necessarily going to be a great movie. It's just going to be like a summer blockbuster.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So should I do a quick summary and then we'll move on to?
You know what? I would love to hear your summary.
Okay. Here's my summary. Army dudes at army base come home, and then army base gets attacked. That happens by random helicopter robot named Blackout, I think. And then it switches over to classroom, where a dude tries to pawn off his grandpa's things while doing a school project. And then we get all of a sudden this random flashback inside of already transitioning to a new character, which was really disconcerting and disorienting, to his grandfather in the Arctic, which is not relevant right now. But it turns out his grandfather had found Megatron, who was searching for the MacGuffin, a.k.a. the Allspark, a.k.a. Cube. And then the army guys are like, hey, we fought this other scorpion thing. And then we learned that it's like some kind of a live computer. And Sam's like, follow my car that I bought. And also now have a girl. And now the car is talking to other cars. And they want my grandfather's glasses. But also the bad cars want my grandfather's glasses. And then we find the glasses. And then the Sector 7 government guys show up. and they fight for some reason, and then Bumblebee gets taken to the Hoover Dam for some reason.
Yeah.
And then we're like, cool, let's try and sneak the cube thing that the aliens want through a city filled with civilians. And then all-out war happens, and Sam pushes the cube into into Megatron's chest, killing Megatron, and then we just pretend like nothing ever happened. But also, he gets the girl for some reason. An army guy gets to go home to his wife and child.
And there's this really awkward ending where he's like making out on the hood of,
while all the Autobots
they're all just sitting there in parked cars.
Yeah, just like, we're just cars, and we're just gonna sit here and watch you.
We're just gonna park on the top.
Oh man, on top of Bumblebee, by the way, who is a sentient car man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man.
Like, maybe don't practice your weird human mating rituals on my head. Like,
yeah.
I don't know, man.
I'm just sort of like, I mean, I saw this as a teenager, and I'm like, oh wow, Megan Fox, she's really hot.
She is really hot.
Wouldn't they be? She's very attractive.
She's very attractive.
But then you're watching this. Now I watch this movie, and I'm like, man, if I was to watch this with a teenager afterwards, I'd be like, okay, everything that he did, don't do any of that.
Don't do any of that.
Don't follow any of that. That is not how it works.
Even if your car stood up, you wouldn't be like. Also, his dog is dumb. What the heck, man? I'm just gonna throw that out there. Like, I mean, you can have whatever kind of dog you want, but like, Chihuahuas are weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, most of the humor was not funny either.
So there was one moment that I actually did enjoy, and that was the moment when his dad's taking him to the car lot and he drives him through the Porsche.
Oh, I just thought that was mean.
See, I think maybe I enjoyed it just because I liked watching Shia LaBeouf get disappointed.
Oh, okay. If you think about it as Shia LaBeouf, it's fine. If you think about it as Sam Witwicky, it's
maybe that's
mean.
the really maybe. But it's like, you know what? But I don't know. I feel like if I was a dad, I'd do something like that.
Okay, remind me not to give you children.
Yeah, this is why it's probably good I never have kids.
Yeah. All right, man. On that note, you want to get into your pitch?
Yeah, sure. Okay, here we go. So I was. One thing that actually came up in the movie, that an image that I wanted to repeat, the scene with them looking at the Mars rover landing.
Oh, that's cool.
I felt like that could work at the beginning of a movie, because the thing is, by that point in the movie, you've already seen the Transformers. You know what they look like. So you as an audience, there's no mystery. You're like, if you're going into a movie called Transformers, do you really think there's going to be that much of a mystery if something shows up? No. But think about like when it's first come out, okay? And if you've done the publicity right, no one's seen the Transformers. No one knows what they look like.
Oh yeah, you could do that.
So you do something like that where you'd have this moment where you'd go, oh, we saw this thing, and I mean, obviously the audience would know, but you'd at least be able to play on the mystery a little bit more. But
yeah.
The way I see the movie beginning is it starts at the military base in Qatar, but it's already being destroyed. And John Voight is showing up at this military base.
You mean the defense secretary?
That's John Voight is the yes. Sorry,
yeah, I'm
just calling him John Voight because I just watched Midnight Cowboy like a week ago, and that's all I can think of.
No
what
worries.
I think of John Voight. Anyway, the defense secretary, John Voight, arrives at the military base to this pile of rubble. And they're saying, oh, we think it was this, we think it was this. And then there's this guy who comes in and says, we need to show you something. We actually have some other information. And then they basically play out that same scene where he's like, we have a photo of this thing that attacked the base. And here's it, on Mars as part of the Mars rover mission. We think this is something that's extraterrestrial in origin. And then it goes to Samantha. Ooh. I made the protagonist female. I thought that'd be more interesting. She's a teenager who is very much fascinated by space, and her mother is a scientist who is on a research expedition in Antarctica, and so she is away. But Samantha she's now in grade 12, doing well in school, and like promised, her dad is going to go to the lot and get her a car. And they go to the lot and she gets a car, which turns out later to be Bumblebee. Yeah, so that's the Iron Giant portion of the movie. I feel
which is essentially what that is.
But you'd actually you'd play on the dynamic between them a little bit more, and you'd have like she'd be going, oh, my car's weird. Like I actually imagined this other scene. So there's another thing that happens maybe before she discovers the car is actually a Transformer. There's another asteroid that's come from space. Mm-hmm. And it lands somewhere in the vicinity of where she lives, and her car one night drives away.
Oh,
and they report it to the police. She doesn't go and chase after it like he does in the movie, but the next morning she wakes up and her car's being returned. So you'd have a little bit of comedy there with the police coming back and going, "Oh, your car was stolen, but it's back. Okay, well, I guess we don't have to worry about it. That's weird.
Solve themselves."
It's like, it's a weird thing that happened. We don't get it, but hey, your car's back, so just let us know if it happens again. Yeah. And then later she discovers that Bumblebee is actually, her car is a Transformer, and Bumblebee explains that he's come to Earth because he's looking for Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime disappeared years ago, and they were all fighting a war on their planet far, far away in the universe. And he took this object they were fighting over and disappeared to try and stop the war from continuing.
Bumblebee did?
So, no, Optimus Prime did. Yeah. So in my version, I switch it. So it's not Optimus Prime who's frozen. It's not Megatron who's frozen. It's actually Optimus Prime who's frozen.
Okay,
yeah. Then, and he explains that he's actually trying to, because he thinks that Samantha's mother has access to Optimus Prime. He thinks that Optimus Prime is actually being kept in Antarctica. And in my version, he actually can speak. He doesn't speak through the radio just because, although it was cool for the movie, I just felt this.
It's a fun gag, but I get it. Like,
he needs to be able to communicate. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Bumblebee.
Yeah, exactly. And then Samantha's mom comes back, and after her returning, because she now has her license, she said they're all going to go do something together. So she drives her mom and her dad to go for dinner or something, driving Bumblebee the car.
Yeah.
And on the way, there's a police car that's following them. And that police car pulls them over, and it turns out to be a Decepticon, Bumblebee and the Decepticon battle. And this is, of course, in front of her mom and dad, who watch this whole thing. And so then afterwards, they go home, and she explains to her mom, like, okay, this is what's going on. My car's a robot from outer space, and
just so you know.
And then just so you know, and he says that you have access to this thing in Antarctica, and she says, I'm not supposed to talk about it, but yes, yes, I do. And we've been doing experiments on this giant frozen robot. I thought it was just a piece of machinery. I didn't realize it was something sentient. Now I feel like we're doing experiments on. You're saying this is actually like a thinking, feeling entity that we've got frozen, and so there's like a whole ethical quandary over that. And,
robot rights.
Robot rights. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, they I hadn't quite figured out how to get them to Antarctica. They eventually got to get to Antarctica, and it was either going to be that Jon Voight goes to catch them and takes them there with him, or they actually just try and get there on their own, and they try and sneak into the base. I hadn't quite figured out all the details for that yet. I have a note here that this is the Terminator 2 portion of the movie where like the military shows up to confiscate the car, and they've got to be like on the run. And so then they're fugitives, but they're trying to get to Antarctica. I hadn't quite worked out all the details there, but they get to Antarctica eventually. And Jon Voight is there, the Secretary of Defense, Jon Voight. And they're saying that, like, we have to, considering the circumstances. Oh, and from Jon Voight's perspective, he knows that the thing that attacked the base in Qatar is as extraterrestrial in origin, and they're trying to figure out what its intentions are. And when they get to the base in Antarctica, she reveals that they've also been researching this cube-like object. I know it's a stupid thing in the movie, the cube, but I wanted to try and keep it and make it work. So the cube that was with Optimus Prime became the thing that was the basis for all modern technology, like it is in Transformers.
Which I thought was a neat touch. I wish they'd explored that a bit more.
Well, so that's what I tried to do. So basically, we've now got Bumblebee and everybody's in Antarctica, and they're like, they're saying we need to like let Optimus Prime go, and and Bumblebee saying we need to destroy this cube because it's going to be like, this is what the Decepticons are after, and if we don't destroy it, the existence of your planet could be at risk. But the people who control it don't want to give it up because they're like, no, this is like everything. We've built everything on this. We need this in order to actually continue to progress as a civilization. Anyway, Decepticons show up, and they've got to unfreeze Optimus Prime so that they can defend against this like first wave of Decepticons. Anyway, Optimus Prime is unfrozen. They fight back against the Decepticons, and he explains that he crashed on Earth thousands and thousands of years ago. He took the cube and flew off into the far reaches of space and crashed on Earth, which at the time was just a big glacier ball of ice. And he hid himself here, and he wanted to hibernate here and hoped that no one in space would ever find him. But he couldn't quite bring himself to destroy the cube because he also knew that it had the potential to create life. And what he didn't... So
is that the reason why humans?
And that's the reason why humans. That is actually what triggered what would be the evolutionary leap to create humans.
Yeah.
And so, and while he's being cryogenically frozen, he's been able to actually see and observe. He hasn't been completely asleep. He's been able to observe, but he's heard about what's been happening with humanity. And then there's like a parallel to climate change.
Yeah.
And he starts talking about like, I thought that this could be like a chance for a new species, a new race of beings, but I didn't anticipate that this cube would actually be the thing that propelled them to such an exponential rate of growth that they would end up destroying themselves. And I should have anticipated that because that was actually the same mistake we made. We started fighting
awesome.
We started fighting over a lack of resources, and I thought somebody else could do better, and I was wrong. They're now going to destroy themselves. And he's like, and we have to destroy the cube. Anyway, he summons more Autobots from outer space because he says, you know what? Well, now that the Decepticons know your planet is here, whether we destroy the cube or not is irrelevant because they're going to show up and they're going to destroy everything now that they know you're here. So we have to defend your planet. So it all builds up. I was like, I feel like I've got to keep the big epic Transformer battle. So This is it. But in my version, it ends with that the humans try to actually rally to create like a global army to try and band together we're going to put all war on hold and we're going to stop to fight these aliens coming from outer space. But the thing is, all the leaders are skeptical, and they say, well, you don't have proof, and we don't actually know that you might just be saying this because you're trying to, you have a political agenda. So even though they're like, no, we have these giant robots, you can see these guys, and they say there's someone else coming. That was going to be a bit of my like jab at climate change deniers.
Yeah.
Anyway, they fight the robots, and in my version, it ends with Optimus Prime actually using the cube to harness the energy to destroy Megatron and destroys himself in the end.
Aw, but a good ending.
And it's kind of, that's sort of my version of the movie. I liked the idea of like the cube being this thing for progress, and then I thought, oh, what if that actually you took that and you built a movie around that? So it's kind of loose, but that's sort of where I was shooting with it, where I feel like if they'd kind of gone in that direction, And then in my version, there's really only three big robot battles. One between Bumblebee and the first Decepticon. One when they try to go to get to Optimus Prime, and then this one really big one at the very end of the movie. Yeah, and that's kind of it.
I like it.
So you save it.
I like that. I really like that. It's like you try to put a message in there. Like, to me, it sort of felt like the message they were having in the original movie was like kind of ham-fisted. Like, it was like humans have the ability for both good and evil. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's
how I felt like sort of Optimus Prime was up to. I like that you focused on like climate change. I thought that was really, really excellent. And I think that parallel works between like not even just climate change, but like progress. Like, I thought maybe that others could do better, but clearly they are not. I also think it's cool that like the cube is the reason we have like life on the planet.
Oh, cool.
Like, that's like, I just think that works really well, because then you could even, I'll talk about this, what I did in my pitch. I did something really interesting with that as well.
Okay,
so
nice.
If I take yours into consideration, I also might have a solution for how they get to Antarctica.
Okay.
So this is just like my pitch on your pitch, but like so the family's trying to get to Antarctica, but they're also trying to like bring a car with them. So they're trying to do it like under the radar. So they're like, hey, we want to bring a car to Antarctica. And everyone's like, you want to bring like a Lamborghini to Antarctica? And then the government gets tipped off, and they're like, okay, like, what's going on here? Like, we know about robots. Idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you can sort of have this, like, how are we going to get this car to Antarctica without anyone noticing? You're like, well, we can get a car to Antarctica. It's easier than getting a robot to Antarctica with nobody noticing. But then the government is sort of like tipped off. They're like, we know that there's transforming robots, and we know that there's a transforming robot in the ice there. So we know what's up. And then they're like, oh, can you help us bring this car to Antarctica? I just a little bit of comedy there. Unless you want to keep...
well, I would actually, I think in tone I'd want mine to be a little bit lighter too. Like, I just feel like the Michael Bay one is way too like just serious.
It doesn't need to be that serious.
No, it's goofy. It's like, oh, these giant robots from outer space that transform into vehicles.
Yeah, is it a war movie or is it like a coming of age movie? Because it doesn't feel like either.
No, exactly. It's just conceptually, it's just so weird. Like, oh yeah, there are these giant robots that transform into 4-wheeled vehicles.
Oh yeah, I mean,
and trying to justify
why cars.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, okay, and a boombox. Also, I take offense with that one scene where they're like the stewardess or flight attendant picks up the boombox, and she's not even like, weird unattended boombox package on Air Force One. Like, I'm gonna pick this up and take it with me. No, you wouldn't. Any electronic would be scared. If it was just left there, you'd be like, that's an unattended package on the frickin' president's plane.
Yeah.
Oh, like, no thank you. That's not how that goes down.
No, exactly.
Yeah, I like it.
That's what I mean. There's too many things in the original that just like go unquestioned, and you're like,
and then they start shooting guns on the plane. Like, I know explosive decompression is not really a thing, but like, also maybe don't.
Yeah.
Anyway, I really like your pitch. It was good.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Let's hear yours.
All right. So I took mine in a different direction. I actually thought that, like, to me, this movie kind of felt like, was it a coming of age movie or a war movie? And I actually, as much as I like looking at Megan Fox, I actually found her character annoying, and I found Sam's character annoying. Or Shia LaBeouf's. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna get rid of both of you because you're dumb. So you're dumb. Like, I don't know what to. So my movie starts out, and it's mine's darker in tone. Like, I'm going for like the gritty realism kind of thing.
Okay.
So my movie starts out with the introduction of Lennox and his team. That's like the army captain. And so we're also introduced to some of the locals, and they're caught up in a war. And this time we're stationed in, for sure, Iraq. Like, we're in Iraq. We're not in Qatar.
Oh, okay.
And so all of a sudden we have a bit of a firefight as they land. Before they get to the base, we're introduced to all of these members as a firefight is happening between a militant group, an unnamed militant group, and the U.S. Army. And there's civilians sort of caught in between, right? And so some of our characters are like, they like live there, and they know the U.S. Army, but they're also like, we know you're here to protect us, but also like, your war sucks. Like, we live here, you just show up and shoot things. So then all of a sudden, this random helicopter shows up at the base. Men are dying. People are dying. At the end, when everything's done, the only people who are left are Lennox's team, because they were just about to come back to the base. So it's just Lennox and his squad, right? They're the only thing that is seen, and they know that it was some kind of robot. So they head to a local town to try and get a phone or something like that, so they can get the message out that this was not another country. This was some kind of weird robot thing. They have pictures. They have some stuff. So they head to a local town, and that scorpion thing that attacked at the local town, that can happen again. But I want to have some of Lennox's team die and some of the locals die.
Oh, okay,
so, like,
right.
We're seeing some casualties now and some cool Transformer stuff. So then when the group calls for help, they're brought stateside the same way, where they're introduced to Sector 7, except Sector 7 isn't a joke. Like, it's actually like a hardcore group of like underground stuff. And they find out about the Decepticons and the Autobots. Here they find out that there was a creature named Omega Supreme that crash landed in the ice, and its body was completely destroyed. So the Autobots explain that there's something, or Omega Supreme explains that there's something called the Allspark, and that they think it somehow was sent to Earth by, during a war. Like, somebody stole it and took it, and they think it might be on Earth, but they don't know. And so Omega Supreme is like, I'm here to search for it, but my body got damaged. So essentially, Omega Supreme says, I'll exchange the knowledge that I have about technology if you help me rebuild my body and search for the Allspark. So, like, cool, yeah, all good. But now also the Decepticons. So Omega Supreme is ran his signal to ask for help from other Autobots, so they start showing up. But also the Decepticons are also showing up, and they're basically tearing the Earth apart, like everything to try and get the Allspark. So the Decepticons just kill anyone in their way. They don't give a shit. They just want that Allspark. The Autobots are here. They're like, hey, we don't really want to intrude on your life. We don't really want you to be in the way. We just want the Allspark, and then everything is fine. So they're trying to protect the humans from the Decepticons, but they're also after the Allspark. So finally, we're almost on the verge. Like, the army guys are like, oh, this is really neat. Like, we'll help rebuild Omega Supreme. Like, it's almost done. But then when Omega Supreme's body is finished, it turns out that he's not Omega Supreme. He's Megatron pretending to be Omega Supreme. So then with his return, an all-out war breaks loose, and then the Autobots show up, and the army guys are like, we just got lied to, and they realize, like, the Autobots are the good guys, and they team up with the Autobots. And so while this war is happening, they're basically like Decepticons all over the Earth, probably specifically the States, because that's how these movies go.
Yeah.
So Autobots are like all over the place. Decepticons are just off. And so Lennox's team, by the Secretary of Defense, Lennox's team, because they've already dealt with them, their job is to go in and follow Megatron around and basically help civilians. So while these fights are happening, Lennox and his squad their job is like evacuation, protect civilians, and just get them out of the way of the battles, because these battles are like colossal. We saw in the movie, you know what I mean? Like, to me, when I was watching the movie, I was like, man, these action scenes are tight. Mm-hmm. They are so great. Explosions are great. Let's have that be the focus. But let's have like the destruction during those battles be the focus. So we're seeing like buildings get torn apart, roadways, people are getting killed, and the Autobots aren't doing this on purpose. They're just the Autobots aren't doing this on purpose. They're just doing it because they want to protect the people, and the Decepticons are actually just tearing cities apart. So then the robots fight, and it's chaos. Where am I here? So finally, with the city half destroyed, Megatron and Optimus Prime have basically torn each other apart to the point where neither is dead, but neither of them can function anymore. Like, their bodies are just so messed up. And Lennox basically says, like, he tells them off for basically fighting a war with each other, where they're destroying and killing humans in the process of their war in a place where they don't belong, for looking for the Allspark, which may or may not even be on Earth. And so then the Autobots agree to leave and help launch the leftover Decepticons into space, but some of the Autobots stay behind as vehicles and possibly as other machines to watch if the Decepticons should come back looking for the Allspark. And we could even hint that at another movie where some of the Autobots were left behind, but this time they transformed into robotic animals, such as like beast machines. For like a sequel.
Beast Wars.
Yeah, Beast Wars, right? So what I really tried to go for in mine was like this parallel between the American military in Iraq fighting militants, right? But like they're basically in a foreign land, assuming and just having this war, and then sort of showing...
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and then sort of showing like all of a sudden Lennox Group was the attacker, and then now all of a sudden they're charged with saving the civilians. And they see, like, this is what happens when you bring two high-powered, destructive groups together. In this case, like, two technologically overpowered alien groups that like, their technology, their weapons are just so much more powerful than anything humans could do that it took, an entire military base to try and take down one. Right? And it still didn't even work. And so this is what happens when you war. Only the innocent people wind up getting hurt.
Yeah.
So basically, this is my political jab at maybe we shouldn't be in war in the Middle East.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. That's what I was going for.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking that occurred to me with both our pitches, at a certain point, the Transformers kind of become the main characters, really, it seems to me.
Yeah, well, I think you kind of have to do that.
Yeah, because in more so than in the original movie. Because in the original movie, they're trying to tell it through, like make it more about Sam. But it really, like he doesn't really stand to lose anything. To be honest,
I mean, like the only thing that he has is like, oh, I really want my car and I really want to bone this hot chick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like that's all he's after, which is really arbitrary when you think about what's going on.
He just wanted a car so that he could get a girl. He winds up with the car and the girl, and then all of a sudden the car can talk, and he almost cares more about the car than he does the girl.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's really weird. But I feel like, yeah, if you're making a movie called Transformers, yeah, I guess you'd make it about Optimus Prime and those guys.
Well, so that's why I tried to keep Lennox in the middle of it all, where he's like, this is all being told to him, and his job is to sort of like protect the civilians as the Autobots are sort of stopping the Decepticons.
Right.
And I think that would be really cool, because then you could have this wicked battle, but then underneath their feet you have like still focusing on Lennox, so we're seeing everything from his team's eyes, and we'd be introduced to more than just Lennox. Like, our main characters would be sort of his squad, so like the 5 or 6 men in his group, and then the Autobots.
Right.
Because I found the original movie was like, is Lennox the main character? Is Sam the main character? Is Michaela the main character? Or is it the Autobots? Or, you know what I mean? Like, or in half the beginning of the movie, we spend following Shockwave around, the tiny little boombox Decepticon.
Right.
So that's why I felt at the beginning, even when we were first introduced to Sam giving his genealogy project, it all of a sudden, like in the middle of his genealogy project, we do a flashback to his grandfather. It's like, whoa, we just got here from a war zone where we were introduced to Lennox. Then we're introduced to Sam, sort of introduced to Michaela, kind of not really. And then we're doing like a flashback. Like, pick a character.
Yeah, exactly.
And the intro also had Optimus Prime giving a voiceover.
Yeah. Well, it jumps around like it's so disconnected. It's so disconnected, and then it tries to connect everything. Because you can do movies like that where you have, like, Magnolia would be a good example, where you have stories that are disconnected. And there are people who disagree with me on this, but I think it's a good example of this being done properly. You have a bunch of characters, but you find a way to thread them all together in the end.
Yeah.
Now, Magnolia does it in a really... Have you seen Magnolia?
I've not.
Okay, it does it in a very bizarre way. That's where it loses some people. I think it works. But in this case, it's like everything just kind of exists to create some bullshit explanation as to why there should be explosions.
Yeah, it's true. Which is weird because, like, I mean, as much as everyone's like, oh, Michael Bay is the explosion director, there's a really, really good movie that Michael Bay has done called The Island.
You know, that movie, actually, there is something... I haven't actually seen the whole thing.
We should do it on CineCasters.
I actually have you know what, that'd be good, because I actually have it on DVD somewhere over there.
Yeah. But I watched that movie, and I'm like, this is a pretty smart movie, and there's explosions towards the end. Also, it's Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's got a bit more of a concept. It's like a dystopian...
Yeah, it's like a sci-fi kind of... Not quite dystopian, but it's a good time.
Okay, yeah. I'd be down for that one. I haven't seen the whole thing through, so...
Yeah. I mean, it does the same thing where they're like on a highway and there's explosions, but at least it's got some thought to it. It's got some substance,
right?
At least in the beginning.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, the funny thing is, in this movie, there was one subtle jab. There was a reference to Armageddon, which was another film that Michael Bay had directed.
Yeah.
Which I thought, I was like, oh, ha, ha. I mean, it wasn't like hilarious, but you go, oh, ha,
Nothing
ha.
in this movie was hilarious. Like, you could tell when they were trying to make a joke. Like, whenever Sam's parents were on screen, like, you could tell, like, they were supposed to be sort of like the doting parents who were overbearing and also like cringe funny. But like, every time they were on screen, I was like, is this how Hollywood thinks families interact? Because like, my parents are weird, and I know they're weird, and like, I know I'm weird too. But like, we do not interact that way. Like, at no time have my parents ever been like, if you want to call it Andrew's happy time or whatever. Like, that's not how my parents and I talk. They'd be like, look, if you want to do it, that's fine. Just like clean up after yourself. Like, you know what I mean? Like my parents and I are really, really open. But like, and then when like Michaela steps up, like even his dad is like, oh, good job, son. I'm like, that kind of like anti-feminist rhetoric is exactly why this movie is so bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, like, I know that potentially Transformers don't have genders, but like, where are all them girl robots?
Yeah, that's a good point. Hey, that's a really good point.
I mean, I'm also projecting because
I wish I'd incorporated that into my pitch. Yeah. Wow.
But I know I'm projecting because like we could say like perhaps because they're machines, they're genderless. Like maybe the Allspark is what gives them life, and without the Allspark they can't quote unquote breed or at least reproduce. Like they can't create any more Decepticons or Autobots. Yeah. But like, I don't know, maybe then let's like, instead of referring to each other as, Bumblebee as him or Optimus Prime as him, he'll do it, you know what I mean? Then like maybe let's be a little bit more androgynous about it. Let's be a little bit more,
which would be really interesting, actually. Like even if you had their voices, like if their voices were, if you managed to do the voices in a way that was less gender specific,
which I don't think would really be that hard because you're already doing like a computer voice. Like why not just layer the voices together and then give sort of a blended thing, and then you could be like, oh, they're actually like, they're not he or she, they're computers, they're robots, right? Not that robots can be genderless. I'm just saying, like, perhaps the Transformers are inherently genderless. Otherwise, like, then let's be a little bit more clear about why there aren't any female robots. Is because I think that's I know there are some female robots in like the later ones, but it feels like, I don't know. I feel like this movie is trying to be like feminist, like, but failing miserably. Like they're like, oh, Michaela is.
I don't even know if it tries, to be honest.
Yeah,
I think it's a like.
I feel like they try to give Michaela like, oh, she's a strong, independent woman who don't need no man and can be attractive, but also is good with cars. But then like the way it shoots her, right? Think of the way.
That's why I say I don't even know
where the camera
if it tries.
lingers. Like when she opens the hood of the car to work on the car, right? She's looking in the hood of the car, and instead of looking at what her hands are doing or what her face is looking at, we're looking at her body. Right? I mean, there's lots of YouTube videos out there that talk about framing and feminism and stuff like that, specifically in Transformers too. So,
well, it's a very clear example. It's easy to point to.
I just think like, where are all them female robots at?
That's a good. Hey, that's a very good point. That's a very good point.
I mean, I guess that also brings up the question: how do Transformers bone?
Well,
do Transformers bone?
I had one idea. I didn't quite get it into my pitch, but I was like, what if the Transformers on their planet were originally like biological and evolved and basically became these more cybernetic beings.
Oh, so
over
like,
time.
are they like biological underneath, or did they like transfer their biological nerves, like brain like structures into
It'd be
technology?
more the latter. Yeah. And then, but because they could live longer, they didn't need to reproduce.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. So then it becomes like, but then they would still be gendered. Well, I mean,
Exactly.
again, I'm assuming because all life on Earth is all more complex life on Earth is somewhat gendered, right? And that's a pretty pejorative statement. So take that as you will. But like, take that as you will. But,
I know what you mean.
What
Yeah.
I mean is like, then they would still there should still be some semblance of like male to female voice, even if they don't have male to female anatomy. Like contrast, because oftentimes when they're like, oh, this one's a girl robot, they're just like, well, this is just a fire truck and we'll draw some boobs on it because that's feminism. Right? You're like, that's not how equality works. Like, one female robot where you draw boobs on it is worse than no female robots.
Yeah.
Like, boobs does not make a female robot. Like, that is not representation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think in terms of the way I had seen them being, I think they would still be gendered if you were to go with what I proposed. But then you would have half of them being female and half of them being male.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be the way to make
And
it
even some evil Decepticons.
make sense.
You know what I mean?
Well,
Like
yeah,
some Decepticon
they'd
women.
be on both sides.
Yeah, they should be on both sides.
Yeah, exactly. They wouldn't all be one way or the other.
Yeah. I did feel like they did a pretty good job with the Australian hacker. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like they were like, oh, we'll have another strong female character, which is fine, and I thought she was great, and every time I look at her...
Well, she actually makes decisions that moves the story along.
Every time I look at her, I'm just like, oh, look, it's Trish Walker from, the Netflix Marvel TV shows. She plays a character specifically on Jessica Jones, and I didn't know she was Australian,
nice.
but the Australian voice really works for her. But then the only problem that I have with that one is at one point in time she's like, I need help with this, and she goes to a man. And I mean, she made the decision to put her career in life on the line, but like, if she's supposed to be if he's supposed to be the best of the best, why wasn't he there?
Right.
I don't know. It just seemed to me like, I mean, she really trusts him because at one point in time, the defense minister is like, "You're now my advisor," and then like, "Who's that?" And she's like, "Well, he's my advisor."
Yeah,
that was a good
exactly.
gag.
Well, the other thing, that was also a really unnecessary character.
Yeah, for sure. Like why not just have her?
Yeah, exactly.
'Cause then
Why can't she just figure it out on her own?
Later on, she's like, "We'll use Morse code. Can you hook up this computer to the radio?" And it's like, why don't you do it? Like, let's just get rid of the middleman and we'll just have you do it. He's literally there, I think, to be like a diversity checklist.
Yeah, which and it's like one of the other characters could have been.
Or her, just
more
or yeah, maybe
or
he was
her
on her
even.
team. I don't know. I just like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like the Secretary of Defense. Like you could
maybe
have
he
cast
could have been
him
like
as.
I mean, he pulls out that shotgun and shoots like a total badass.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I know I keep saying John Voight as the Secretary of Defense, but you know who else would have been a really cool as the Secretary of Defense?
Who?
Oh, I keep forgetting his name. Have you ever seen The Wire?
no, not in a long time.
The guy who plays the lieutenant in that.
Okay.
He'd be so cool as the Secretary of Defense.
Yeah, I just think. I mean, the way you present it, like, what if the Secretary of Defense was like
Lance
this,
Raddick.
Yeah,
that's who I'm thinking.
What if
of.
the Secretary of Defense was like this suited up guy, and then all of a sudden, when push
Reddick,
comes to shove,
Lance.
when push comes to shove, he just like buckles down, takes his tie off, and loads his shotgun.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, let's get down to business. But yeah, I don't know. That was Transformers. It is not as good as I remember. In fact, it was 100 times worse. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and say it. I know a lot of people like this movie, but I thought Transformers was like really, really, really bad. Worse than Sam Raimi's Spider-Man.
I actually liked Sam Raimi's Spider-Man.
I actually think Sam Raimi's first, second, and third Spider-Man movies are not good.
I actually, I should revisit them because I actually,
You know what? Why don't we
I
do
actually
Spider-Man?
like the first two. The third one, okay, fair. But I think the second one is a solid movie. There's actually, I think it's a pretty complex.
Maybe we should do that
character
one
story
for next
Okay.
CineMasters.
All right.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
All right. Let's do that one. So.
But I mean, I could think of many other movies that
Well, maybe I'll just add it to the list then.
But no, I mean in terms of like this Transformers movie is.
Oh yeah, this Transformers movie was bad.
Yeah,
and they made what 6 more now with Bumblebee.
I don't know. I saw the second one.
I stopped watching. Even when people were like, "Oh, have you seen the new Bumblebee?" I was like, "No," because it's Transformers.
You know, apparently
it's really good.
Apparently it's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I am curious. And actually, when I was doing my pitch, I realized, it's the female character. They did that with Bumblebee. I'm not copying what they did in Bumblebee, I hope. But
I haven't seen it yet either, so I have no idea.
Although, it's funny. I realized, jumping back to another episode, we were in Atlantis, and the pitch I did for Atlantis, you made some comments that it's like Black Panther. And then I went later and I watched Black Panther, and I was like, oh yeah, I totally
just made Atlantis
from this
Black Panther.
I just turned Atlantis into Black Panther, basically.
Which isn't a bad move. I mean, that movie was pretty good.
I mean, Black Panther had a lot of good things going for it. It was a really spectacular film, yeah. Good. I thought it was great, yeah.
Yeah, but I think I'm ready to close the book on Transformers. I mean, for now. We'll definitely have to look at the sequels.
Okay.
That's what we do on CineMasters. We make bad movies good. Or at least we make them bearable.
Yeah, well, I mean, I always like to approach it of like, if someone was to hand me this as a writing assignment, like, okay, we're going to make this big movie based on an action figure. We need you to come up with a story for it. Here's the first draft.
And you can't change it.
We didn't like
much,
it.
Yeah.
But what would what would you do with it?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we'll have to do it again. I really enjoy doing these, even with terrible movies. It's just sometimes we watch these movies and I'm just like, what even is this?
It is fun. I gotta say, it is fun to come up with an idea for what a different movie would be, because I sometimes come up with things and I go, oh, maybe I'll use that in something else.
Yeah, like you did with our non-aired episode, April Fool's episode.
Which I might I
might use that one. It was pretty good, man. When you came up with that pitch, I mean, there were a couple things there that really didn't work because of some technical issues on both of our ends because we didn't communicate well enough. But then you gave me that pitch. You blindsided me. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize we were making good pitches. I thought we were trying to make bad pitches. But whatever. It's all good.
It was fun.
All right. And with that, that's Transformers. Where can people find you online?
Just go to my website, www.nathanieldraper.com.
Cool.
But that's spelled with an A, not an I, so it's NATHANAEL.
Oh, okay.
DRAPER.com.
Yeah, and you can find like your documentaries, other things you're working
on.
Yeah, everything. And
everything.
You can find me online at on YouTube at Robot Philosopher, because I'm not on the internet anymore because I'm trying to stay away from that. So
same with me. Yeah. No, it's so much better. Like I don't like social media.
Nope, me neither. And of course, you can always find CineMasters on YouTube. You can also find us on Facebook and probably SoundCloud and a couple other places. But with that, we'll catch you next time. Peace out.
Yeah.